Greetings and welcome to the United States Transhumanist Party Virtual Enlightenment Salon. My name is Gennady Stoliarov II, and I am the chairman of the U.S. Transhumanist Party. Here we hold conversations with some of the world's leading thinkers in longevity, science, technology, philosophy, and politics. Like the philosophers of the Age of Enlightenment, we aim to connect every field of human endeavor and arrive at new insights to achieve longer lives, greater rationality, and the progress of our civilization. Greetings and welcome to our Virtual Enlightenment Salon today on February 27th, 2022. These are unfortunately highly unsettled and troubled times in world history, but there is a bright spot in the world today. And that bright spot is in Africa. There are some promising developments in Africa that our guests are going to highlight today. In particular, the advent of the Fourth Industrial Revolution and how Africa and Africans can make crucial contributions to the coming technological singularity. So we have a distinguished panel joining us today. We have our Director of Visual Art, Art Ramon Garcia. We have our Legislative Director, Jason Geringer. We have our Foreign Ambassador in Spain and Technology Advisor, Dr. Jose Cordero. We have our Director of Longevity Outreach, Ben Ballweg. We have our Director of Sentient Rights Advocacy, Tom Ross. And we have our member, Edward Hudgens, who also works for our allied organization, which is featured in today's Virtual Enlightenment Salon, which is TAFFDs, the Transdisciplinary Agora for future discussions. So representing the Transdisciplinary Agora for future discussions is also Ugo Chukwu, who is the Chief Operating Officer at TAFFDs, and he is the author of this excellent work, An Exercise in Clear Thinking, which I read and reviewed back in December of 2020. And we had Ugo as our guest for a prior Virtual Enlightenment Salon in December of 2020. And hopefully later on, we'll also have Brenda Ramokopelwa joining us. She is the CEO of TAFFDs, the Transdisciplinary Agora for future discussions. But in the meantime, we would like to play an introductory video that TAFFDs has compiled to give us some of the highlights of the forthcoming Gen4IR Summit. 4IR stands for the Fourth Industrial Revolution, which will be held in South Africa on March 24th and 25th of this year. So let us play this video now.
The dawn of a new generation is here, a new civilization. It all began in the mountains and valleys of our plains, where the first of our kind was born by Mother Nature, the cradle of humankind. Ever since then, our species have thrived. We've learned how to speak, write, fly, and create new worlds. Our journey of civilization has taken us to many lands, beyond waters and far into the depth of space. Today, the force of evolution has taken us to the new path. Are we ready to take this leap? To go on this journey, we must return to our origins. As we enter a new epoch for our species, we must understand that the origin of mankind is literally its future. We are leading humanity to this next phase. This is an invitation to begin the journey of the next level of our technological progress, from where our civilization began. Introducing Gen4IR, accelerating our singularity future for development in Africa.
TAFFDs Global Summit for 2022 will be held at the beautiful Sun City Resort in the Northwest Province of South Africa. It brings together delegates and speakers from various parts of the world who will come and share their experience and expertise and help to come up with collaborative solution between academia, private and public institutions.
Now, at this summit, first, you will learn about the exponential technologies in communications and information, robotics, artificial intelligence, nanotech, and much more that are going to allow entrepreneurs and reformers in Africa to transform their economies, their institutions, and their whole societies. Second, you are going to be able to meet and talk with those reformers, the intellectuals, and the entrepreneurs who are going to create this transformation. And third, you can be part of the transformation yourself at this conference. You will be engaged. You will see what the future of Africa can be and should be if we unleash the creative intelligence and power of South Africans and people in all African countries.
We have to move along with the moving times. And if you're really concerned about the future of humanity and what we can do in order to change it or make it better for ourselves and for the coming generation, you have to be there. I'll be there 23rd and 24th of March 2022, Sun City, South Africa.
I'm glad that no matter what, we can organize this special event in Sun City, and hope to see you soon, guys. To check our website, our social media. We are working for you day by day to get together the prominent names all around the world, from biotech, longevity industry, eVTOL, flying car market, cryptocurrency, and artificial intelligence as well.
Futurists, transhumanists, singularitarians, longevity scientists, industry pioneers will converge to produce ideas that will inspire projects that will drive the fourth industrial revolution. TAFFDs is a gateway in and out of Africa. We have been connecting governments, companies, organizations, policymakers and entrepreneurs to come together to think, create and build the future of our species. This summit is a futurecast. It features everything from education, blockchain solutions, smart cities, medicine, life extension, amongst many others. Become part of the minds that will fashion the next generation of the fourth industrial revolution. It begins here. Welcome to Sun City.
Excellent video and a great introduction to the TAFFDs Gen4IR Summit. And I'm pleased to announce that we have Brenda Ramokopelwa, the CEO of TAFFDs, with us. So thank you, Brenda, for joining us. This is an opportune occasion to ask you to provide us with a brief update as to the work that TAFFDs has been doing since you became the CEO. Now, we most recently had a virtual Enlightenment Salon with the officers of TAFFDs back on August 2nd, 2020, when our friend and director of sentient rights advocacy, Tom Ross, was the CEO of TAFFDs. But a lot has changed with the world and a lot has changed with TAFFDs since that time. So we're eager to hear what is new and what is ongoing. Brenda, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Janadi, and thanks to everybody at the Enlightenment Salon and the USTP for giving us the opportunity to be here tonight. Yes, as you rightly said, a lot has changed at TAFFDs, but we are still on the same mission, that one of opening the gateway into and out of Africa for young futurists. So we have embarked on a lot of projects leading up to our summit, which is coming up on the 23rd to the 25th of March. So some of those projects include the educational programs that we have with the schools, specifically schools that are in the rural areas, and trying to give them awareness sessions, providing them with skills, and also working with them to build projects that will be beneficial not only to them as young futurists, also to the communities that they come from. So some of those projects, for example, is the agri-tech projects that we have that, that will help them in such a way that they can start to feed themselves. They are growing vertical farms. They are also involved in beekeeping. Some of those projects will be showcased at our summit, and some of them are into creative arts, and we will start to see some of those coming to life in the next few months. And we are hoping that, they can share some of those ideas when we get to the summit. As far as TAFFs is concerned, we are growing day by day. Our footprint since our registration in South Africa back in 2020 has increased a lot. Out of the 54 countries that we have in the African continent, I can, confidently say that we have touched a lot of the countries in the continent. I think, if I look at the officers that we've got, we are slowly reaching the 10th or 5th or 11th country so far in terms of representation. This is now talking about the officers that are represented, that are representing TAFFs in the different countries. We are hoping that by the end of next year, maybe we would have reached at least about 25 countries, and then we can keep going like that in the next few years. But, with the summit coming up and with a lot of interest from young people in the African continent, we can easily reach double that number in the next year or two.
Excellent. Well, thank you for this overview, Brenda, and it looks like you have ambitious ongoing initiatives that cover most of Africa and are quite promising in terms of teaching young Africans the technological skill sets that will be necessary to propel them forward as participants in this new era of emerging technologies. Now let us go to Ugo Chukwu, the Chief Operating Officer of TAFFDs. Please proceed with your remarks and tell us more about the summit and the works of TAFFDs.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gennady, and thank you guys for having us. It's a great pleasure to be here. So I'll begin this way. The work we're doing at TAFFDs is a work I think is a humanity project, in the sense that, like we say, you have in the video, that's the origin of humanity is literally its future. We understand there is a higher sense of consciousness and understanding of the stage at which our species is currently at. And the level of technological progress, emerging and convergent technologies that are driving the progress we have today, is pushing us to the point that it appears that progress is moving at a speed that we are unable to catch up with. And it's important for us to understand that as humanity progresses, we go forward in this in our evolutionary progress. No part of human race should be left behind, or even can be left behind, because if any part of human race is left behind, then it forestalls. It's actually presents a problem for the other people. So the work we are doing at TAFFDs is one that is, like I say, it's a humanity project that is focused on driving the progress, not just for Africa, but for the rest of the world. Now, we believe that any progress that should be driven has to be intentional. The future of humanity, progress is not automatic. It is not automatic. It's something that has to be intentional. We have to build it intentionally. And then we keep talking about the singularity, that opportune time in the future when our technologies converge so much that it becomes almost impossible to predict what is happening. But we believe at TAFFDs that just like you're driving in your car in the night, and then you cannot see the end point of where you're going, but the headlamp can allow you to see the next pole, at least the next pole. What we are doing is to allow us to shed that light, to bring that intentionality into the equation of how these technologies are evolving, how these technologies are growing, and then to use that intentionality to build in a sense of urgency to our to young leaders in Africa. Africa has the youngest population, youngest growing population, and as we go forward into the future, this population can either become a blessing or a curse, depending on how it is managed, depending on the kind of empowerment that it's given. And so we understand the work that is ahead of us. And then these young population, they are not just people that are there and they have nothing to do, but these are passionate young people who are ready to drive progress, who are ready to push things forward. And they have a lot of faith in humanity. They have a lot of faith in the work we are doing. And the rate at which they're adopting technology and progress and the progress that's coming out of it is very high. If you come in Nigeria and even in South Africa, the rate of technology adoption is very high, it's very rapid. And so the work we are doing at TAFFDs is actually creating the platform, creating the platform for these young people to spearhead the future that it's already theirs. We are bringing leadership into it. And as futurists, you cannot talk about the future without having a strategic understanding or a strategic plan of how to actualize that future. That is the work we are bringing at TAFFDs. That is the work we are doing at TAFFDs. Providing the platform for these young people to actually do what we call future casts, which means an intentional approach of building a future that is sustainable for all of humanity. So we are not just going into the future and then approaching the technologies that we have with that blind, some kind of blind enthusiasm, but actually and a level of intentionality that actually drives progress. And that is what this Gen4IR is all about. Building the gateway in and out of Africa to allow for entrepreneurs, policymakers, futurists, people from all walks of life to come into Africa to have that touch with this young, bright, vibrant population that is ready to move forward, and then to bring the intentionality that comes with the leadership, what leadership is supposed to bring, so that we can drive this progress forward, so that we can drive the future of humanity forward, so that we can accelerate our singularity future, not just for the development of Africa, but across the world. Every well-meaning human that believes in the spirit of humanity to drive progress through its tools, its technology. That is what TAFFDs is for. And this is why we are doing this summit.
Excellent remarks. Thank you very much, Ugo. And this is echoed by Tom Ross, who says this is a great video thus far. And Alan Crowley has actually cited a comment that I also wanted to highlight independently that you made, Ugo. Anything that must be driven intentionally. And Alan says so many people and organizations blunder ahead simply assuming that they are on the right track and doing the right things. He furthermore says, thank you for expressing that sentiment and backing it up with an intentional plan. So indeed, progress is not automatic. It's not guaranteed. We have to work for it. And we have to build up the infrastructure for it, both in terms of the organizational infrastructure and the educational infrastructure. And I commend TAFFDs for putting forth efforts to do just that. And now let us go to Dr. Edward Hudgens for his remarks on the work of TAFFDs.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here again. And by the way, I want to mention another book, Seizing Our Singularity Future, which I edited. And Gennady, you have a chapter in this book. So as do I. So I just, this is another TAFFD project. And again, I want to highly recommend to everybody Ugo's excellent book on an exercise in clear thinking. I mean, because that's what it comes down to. You've got to start with thinking. And, if you don't have that, if you can't think clearly, all of the wonderful things we're talking about here today are going to not come about. But I actually got interested in Africa specifically in the late 1980s. I was working in a place called the Heritage Foundation, and I wanted to develop a thing called an Index of Economic Freedom. And the first paper I did, research, I looked at Africa, and I looked at sub-Saharan Africa minus South Africa, because we were treating that as a special case because of the apartheid situation. I looked at 1965 to 85, and I wanted to see how those African countries were doing. And they had on average $500 per capita income, and total GDP was about $100 billion. That was 1965, okay, which is about the time most of them were getting their independence. By 1985, per capita income was still about $500 because of population growth, even though GDP had grown from 100 billion to 200 billion. And I said, what would happen if the sub-Saharan African countries grew at the same rate as the so-called four Asian tigers, South Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, and Hong Kong? So I crunched those numbers, and I came up with, instead of having $500 per capita income, it would be about $1,800. Instead of 200 billion GDP, it would be 648 billion GDP. The point is that economic growth could really have helped those countries. And the countries, of course, have struggled along over the intervening decades, but something that is very new and very important is, of course, mass communications and information means that the technologies that were often simply reserved for the West or for the most developed countries are now everywhere and spreading everywhere. The fact that I'm having this incredible conversation with my incredible friends in South Africa, in Nigeria, and who knows where else is an indication of that. The second thing is that this technology not only allows people in Africa to, I think, be at the spearhead of economic development, it's going to be at the spearhead of cultural change and political change. And the reason is that if you look at the Index of Economic Freedom, which I worked on and helped develop there at the Heritage Foundation, you find that one of the reasons the African countries are among the poorest in the world, if you look at correlation between economic liberty and prosperity, the ones that are the least free are also the poorest. And the things where there really is a problem in Africa, a lot of them have incredible resources, obviously, but it's a cultural governmental problem. On property rights, for example, if on a 1 to 100 scale, African countries, sub-Saharan Africa taken together, rate about 47% compared to 57% for the rest of the world, and a 90% score on protecting property rights for the most free countries and therefore the most prosperous countries. Judicial independence, 37% for African countries, 46% for the rest of the world, 80% for the most developed and prosperous countries. And government integrity, only 29% for the African countries, 44% for the rest of the world, almost 90% for the most developed countries, meaning there's a political problem in the African countries. Now, fortunately, two interesting things are happening. This is where TAFFD is really at the spearhead. First of all, a lot of the African governments are starting to get interested in what TAFFD is doing, especially in South Africa. This is very important. Also, what this conference and the follow-up is going to be doing is training the next generation of cadres who are going to be the leaders. They're going to be the entrepreneurs. They're going to be the leaders of industries. They're going to be the leaders of education. They're going to be the leaders of government and all of the various institutions. So this isn't just a matter of educating about the incredible promise of technology, which it is, but the overflow is going to be incredible. One of the things, and Brenda, you might want to speak to this a little bit more on the next round. What TAFFD is doing is developing curricula to go into schools that's going to incorporate what we call future studies. And I think this is the first time I've seen this done anywhere. I know that there are courses at various universities and various places that focus on different aspects of it, but developing a whole curriculum like that is so entrepreneurial in the educational sense that I think you're going to see wonderful things coming out of that effort. And I'm proud that I'm going to be part of that. I'm looking forward to providing some contributions, rounding up some other folks who can provide contributions as well. I will certainly be, I probably can't, unfortunately, come to the conference live because of some family issues, but if I can't do that, I'll certainly be speaking at the conference, recording live on video in some way. And I'm right now, what I'm going to be doing right after this call is contacting people at the World Bank and other places to see if I can get them to come to this conference. They're the people who need to listen to this. So one of the things I'm trying to do is recruit. So I'll get off of this call right at the end and start recruiting for you guys a little bit more. Okay. Anyway, it's an incredible organization. It's going to be an incredible conference, and I urge everyone to tune in.
Thank you very much, Edward. And Mike Lazine states that Dr. Hudgens really did some serious research. He says, great job. And we echo this. And I do think the next subject of conversation ought to be the future studies curricula that TAFFDs is putting together. So Brenda, could you please elaborate upon your work in this area?
Thank you so much. And thank you, Dr. Hudgens, for highlighting that. I think, that is the most incredible initiative that TAFFDs is embarking on, and thanks to the likes of Dr. Hudgens, Ugo Chukwu, who are really driving this project. So what this project is about is trying to introduce future studies, as Dr. Hudgens has highlighted, and we are touching not only on what is coming down the line in terms of technology advancement and science advancement. We are really looking at all the disciplines across the sectors and saying, what is it that we think, based on where the future is going, needs to be taught in schools today? What are the type of skills that are needed by the young people today that will put them in a better position tomorrow to be able to make informed decisions, to be able to, to lead better than what we are seeing? I mean, earlier on, he highlighted the fact that
It seems that we may have lost Brenda's connection. Oh, she's back.
Okay. Apologies about that. My internet connection is a bit unstable. But so as I was saying, there's lack of leadership, strong leadership in some African countries, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done from an educational point of view. So we are looking across the sectors and across the disciplines and seeking out experts to come and contribute to this particular curriculum. Our aim here is to put something that can be consumed by kids that are still in elementary level, and then we're going to look at kids that are in the intermediary level and put something together for them, and then we're going to look at higher education, so your universities, and say, what is it that they need? I mean, if you think about it, people that finish school today, I mean, if you think about a 4-year degree, by the time a young child finishes that 4-year degree and they qualify, most of the stuff that they learned in the first and the second year has, cannot be used. So what we want to do is to equip them with practical skills that they will be able to use while they are studying and also after they are studying, to complement the curriculum that they already have. If you think about entrepreneurs, we have seen in the COVID era, in the past 3 years, people lost their jobs. people became redundant in their jobs. So we are looking to build or help people develop skills that stays relevant regardless of the change, the skills that they can use to benefit themselves and also benefit the communities that that they live in. So we are calling out for experts across the world. If you are able to contribute or can contribute to this program that we are putting together, that will be absolutely amazing. We are hoping that we can launch this program or this curriculum at our summit that's coming up in March, and we will do it chapter by chapter or volume by volume, and probably start by giving it to the schools that we have already adopted, like I spoke about, the schools in the rural areas that might not have access to good quality education, and use that as a pilot. And then as we go along, roll it out to the different schools. And the way this has been designed, and Ugo Chukwu will touch on this as well, it is in such a way that it is fitting for a child who goes to a good school that have got quality education, and a school that is based in the rural area. So we have customized it in such a way that it can be consumed by both. And also, what we want to do is, even though we're studying in South Africa, we want to roll it out to all the African country. But we recognize that not all countries in the African continent are the same. The needs are different because of the diversity that we've got. The way we roll it out will be different. So as we go along, we will customize it so that it is fit for purpose as well.
Yes, thank you, Brenda. And we have a question from our friend John H. on the Future Studies curriculum. He wonders if a lot of those future studies materials will consist of regular STEM stuff. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, which is future-oriented by its very nature. So I'm wondering if you could briefly discuss what proportion of the curricula would be aligned with more of a standard set of STEM subjects versus what proportion would be more uniquely futurism oriented?
So as far as STEM stuff is concerned, I think that will be the foundation of it. So I'm not gonna, talk about the percentage that will be STEM stuff. I think Ugo Chukwu and Dr. Hudgens will be more suited to answer that question, but the foundation will be STEM stuff, because we still want to make sure that the basics are covered. And also we want to align with the curriculum that's already out there in the school. If I take the South African curriculum, for example, STEM is very, very important, and they will make sure that at least, about 40 to 60% of the curriculum is, STEM subjects. So we will ensure that it still aligns to that, but it's very futuristic as well, in the sense that you don't just learn, like basics of robotics as an extra curriculum. It is something that you really need to learn and understand. And we're gonna teach a bit of programming. And then if you think about critical thinking, which is something that Ugo specializes in, we're gonna go into that. And then we're going to think, if you think about, what can be consumed by a case that's in a grade 1 versus a child that is in a senior class in high school, we will try to differentiate between the two. But to answer the question more directly, yes, STEM stuff will still be there. Not sure about the percentage, but that will form the foundation of what we are building.
Excellent. Thank you, Brenda. And now let us go to Ugo for his elaboration on the future studies curricula.
Yeah, so just to start off a little bit on that, at the core of the program itself, it's STEM, because practically what's the the curriculum, the course, and actually also the book is all about is empowering students to become problem solvers, empowering students to think like leaders. And when we talk about thinking like leaders, I think to a large extent, what is bereft of leadership that we have in the world today is a lack of understanding of how the world actually works. And that is what STEM at its core addresses. So if you look at the program, what we mapped out, I could share with some of you who are interested to contribute. Uh, there is at its core, it's everything is underlined at STEM. Um, uh, there are programs there that deal with how to think like a futurist, how to think like an engineer, how to think like a scientist, how to think like a leader. So these are issues that are very very important. So you're thinking about problems that deal with humanity, but you're thinking at it from the first principles of the sciences, because that's what's at the core of the STEM. That's what it's all about. Thinking about problem solving from the first principles. These are what we want to engender in these students. So when you start teaching students how to think from first principles from a very elementary level, it empowers them in an understanding of how the world works, so that as you learn how to think like a scientist, like an engineer, like a futurist, we have programs there that deal with transhumanism as a concept, and also practical applications of it, singularity. These are issues and programs and subjects that are taught that are embedded in the program, in the course itself. It forms at the fabric of it. So if you mesh this with the practical understanding of the first principles, which is what the sciences are all about, then it empowers the students to really know how to solve problems and to come out with practical solutions on issues that pertain to the world. So that is what the curriculum is really all about. We want to empower students who will become leaders, so that they can think in practical terms, so that they can think on how to solve problems in more practical ways, to think clearly and be able to solve problems, from the first principles. So it forms a huge core aspect of what the curriculum is all about. And it's very important. Like I tell people that we train futurists to become leaders of tomorrow, because as I define futurist, a futurist is not just someone who rolls out futuristic theories or exciting possibilities of how the future is going to look like. A futurist is someone who has a vision for tomorrow and a strategic way to get us there, a strategic and practical plan to get us there. That is what the futurist is all about. And this is at the core of what we want to engender in the students. And you cannot think of practical solutions of how to get people there if you don't know how to, if you don't understand pattern thinking, if you don't understand how to think in patterns, if you don't understand how to simulate, run simulations, if you don't understand how to think in first principles, if you don't understand history. Part of the programs that are there is historic thinking and futuristic thinking. We teach this side by side. For you to predict the future, you have to understand the past and understand the patterns so that you can predict them, and then simulate what you can use to create the future. It's a very core aspect of this. So these are the thinking skills that students will be empowered with. And I think anybody that is empowered with this kind of a skill will approach the future with a more confident approach than with wishful thinking of what it's going to look like. So that's, in a nutshell, that's what the program is all about. I can share with you if you're interested in contributing or being part of this great work.
Yes, thank you very much, Ugo. And we have some feedback from our audience. John H. says, lack of understanding of how the world works. Yeah, that could be a problem if people lack such understanding. He also says, our species needs lots and lots and lots of improved critical thinking skills. And Daniel Twett comments that cultures of continuous improvement must replace cultures of unquestioned obedience. And of course, that is what critical thinking strives to do. Edward, would you like to say a few words about the future studies curricula?
yeah, I certainly agree with Ugo on all of these things. And again, that's why I call his book to everybody's attention, because it's an exercise in just that. By the way, in talking about the dynamics of future economy, one of the things that a lot of people are starting to focus on as well, they should, is lifelong learning and what we call, getting the kind of skills ready when they're needed, because we do have a very dynamic economy, especially in advanced countries, but it's going to be the same in African countries. And having a system where people know how to learn. It's not just that they learn whatever the skill is that they need, but they know how to learn so that they can always be upgrading themselves, just like we upgrade our computer programs, right? It's a matter of constantly upgrading yourself. I'm very interested, by the way, in thinking in what I call synergy, meaning that you always have dynamic factors, economic factors, cultural factors, political factors, all working together. And part of what I think is being a futurist is to see how those are all working together and what direction they're pointing in, so that we can, in a sense, get ahead of the game. We can never predict perfectly. By the way, another book I want to call to people's attention, and Gennady, I know you had him on a recent show, was David Wood's book, Vital Foresight. And again, his book is very much about how to think about the future and develop that skill. And you're always going to be thinking, yes, in first principles, but you're always going to be rooted in the real world and looking at the long term. And again, to have a unique curriculum that can do that can teach people how to think, how to look ahead, how to take into account the dynamism of technology, to me is incredible. And again, I'm hoping that, because I'm trying to do it also in the United States, I'm hoping that maybe Africa and what we're doing with here is going to be able to influence other countries. I know South Africa government is interested in this, and some of the other governments there are interested in this as well. I'd like to see that coming to other countries as well. And we have some opportunities in the United States also for that. So again, this is incredibly exciting. And to me, in the long run, after the conference, this is going to be the most important thing in the long run. And because who controls the institutions, who controls getting people to think in certain ways, in this case, critical thinking, that's what's going to make the future, is the individuals, how they think, what their ideas are. And so again, it's an incredibly important enterprise.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Edward. And also, I would like to acknowledge the generous super chats we've received from our friend John H., as well as earlier on from Kimberly Forsyth. And she did share the live long and prosper greeting in her super chat. So we are conveying that right now. And Kimberly, you yourself should live long and prosper. Thank you very much. And now we shall go to our friend Dr. Jose Cordero for his remarks.
Well, I am so happy to be with you, participating in this event with TAFFDs, and to see Brenda and Ugo so active and doing incredible things for Africa and for the world. I just came back from Dubai. I was 1 week at the Expo 2020, which actually is Expo 2022. And it was a lot dedicated to Africa, because Dubai is at the intersection of Africa, Asia, and Middle East and Europe. So some of the most beautiful, fantastic pavilions were pavilions from Africa, the African Union as well, and different countries, obviously large countries like Egypt, Nigeria, South Africa, Ethiopia. So I had a fantastic time. I have a special attachment with Africa because I lived 3 years in different African countries. In a former life, I was in the oil exploration business. I was in petroleum search and discovery. And I was in many countries in Africa. And I remember very dearly Africa also, because I am from Latin America. I grew up in South America, in Venezuela. I see there are many similarities to Africa and Latin America, also in terms of integration and development. If the European Union was the first area of the planet that integrated, Latin America is coming up now, and Africa is the next one. So I'm very excited about what we will see in Africa, and also in terms of development and growth. I see fantastic opportunities, growth between 5 and 10% for many African countries. So I'm really, really excited to see what will be happening in Africa and the big role of TAFFDs in Africa. Also, I'm supposed to participate on the Gen4IR event, and I am wondering if you can update us. What is the latest on travel conditions, situation with Omicron in South Africa, and all of that, because it is complicated to travel. And again, now that I was in Dubai, it was not easy. You still need all these COVID tests, certificates, to border, to get into airlines, in some countries to go to a restaurant. So what is the situation in South Africa? How is that going? How many people do you expect to have in the conference? And tell me more about that, because I'm really excited and looking forward to it.
Janedy, if you don't mind, I'll just go in and respond to that. Thank you for the questions, and we're looking forward to welcoming you to South Africa. As far as the COVID situation is in South Africa, I can confidently say that it is under control. Our, infection rates have gone down dramatically. Even the death rates have gone down dramatically. So the Omicron is not an issue. I don't want to say it's not an issue. It is an issue because COVID is still here, and we're still worried about the infection and people not vaccinating and all of that. But it is under control. Yes, there are still very strict protocols that need to be followed as far as, safety is concerned, to ensure that, you stay safe and you keep everybody that you interact with safe. So as far as travel is concerned, you will be required to take a COVID test when you board. And if it is positive, I think depending on the airline that you're using, you will not be allowed to board. When you land in South Africa, they will require you to, one, if you have not vaccinated, to show a negative COVID test. The mandatory vaccination is no longer required anymore. It's no longer there anymore. So in other words, even if you have not been vaccinated, you need to show that negative test. As far as quarantine is concerned, it is no longer 10 days, it is now 7 days. But when you get to the restaurants, there's no requirement for you to produce a vaccination certificate or anything like that, but you will have to sanitize, you have to keep your mask on in all public places. Your social distancing is still required. If you go into conferences and all of that, obviously, the same protocol will still apply. And, at the core of it is making sure that you are safe and you keep the people that are around you very safe. One thing that I can tell you for sure is that the health services in South Africa, and as is the case across the world, are working very hard to make sure that this virus is contained. And, we will as well at the conference ensure that all of our delegates are safe. And we are expecting about 160 people to come to the conference. and 60% of the people that have shown interest or we are expecting to come are coming from outside of the borders of South Africa. So it will be 40% local and about 60% that we are expecting to come from other African countries or outside of the African continent.
Excellent. Thank you, Brenda, for that important overview for anyone who wishes to travel to the Gen4IR Summit. And by the way, Jose, our friend John H. says, Viva la Revolución. So thank you.
Fantastic. In Spanish, you know, Viva la Revolución.
Excellent. And the discussion of the travel arrangements does bring up another question, which is, what are the ways in which someone might participate in the Gen4IR Summit? I understand that it will be held in person in South Africa, so one can register for a travel to it. Is there any option for either a virtual participation or virtual speaking? I know that there are some distinguished speakers there from the European countries and from the United States, and another person I've seen on the program is Dr. Bill Andrews. So what are some of the options for speakers as well as for attendees of the Gen4IR Summit?
So first preference is in person. So we will give preference to all of the speakers that will attend in person, because it is definitely not a hybrid event. Unless the regulation changes or the COVID situation changes, we want to keep it as 100% in person. But we do realize that because of some restriction in different countries and the type of expertise that we really, really want to feature at the conference, it might be difficult for some of our speakers to travel. We have allowed for a small percentage and a very small percentage to present virtually. They will send the pre-recorded videos and be able to take some of the questions live. But that is a very small percentage. And most of the speakers will be flying into South Africa because we really need that, in-person connection and networking to happen. Because starting from the 23rd, which will be the day that we're welcoming everybody at the Sun City Resort, we are going to start with the welcome ceremony where all our delegates and our speakers get to interact with the locals, be it the people from the community and all of the other people that are traveling from the different South African provinces. We have the entrepreneurs, we have people from the public sector, the government representatives, we have people from the private sector that are coming there. A lot of people haven't been out since COVID started. So people are quite excited to go out there and, have that personal interaction. So we really are encouraging everybody to come to South Africa and, just get a feel of, the African hospitality. On the second day, we also have a full day with different topics. If you look at our program on our conference site, it will tell you about the different speakers that will be coming from the African continent, from outside of Africa. And in the evening as well, we are hoping to, entertain everybody with the drums and beats and dancing and we are going to have dinner under the African skies and it will be quite amazing. On Friday, the 25th, when we close out our conference, we are going to have the different young people that will be on stage presenting their creative and innovative ideas, talking about what, their view for the future is, and what are the projects that they have been involved with TAFFDs, and also talking about, what is it that they see for their own future, and what they think about the world at large. So it will be quite interesting to listen to these young ones. We will close that off with a lot of other speakers. We will have a panel discussion as well around blockchain, around space exploration. So there's many topics that will be covered. After that, we will take some of our delegates and our speakers on a safari excursion, and they will also get to see the surrounding communities as well. We have support from the Department of Tourism, who are excited to really give you an experience as far as African tourism is concerned. We have support from the province of the Northwest, which is where the Sun City Resort is situated, that will be, those people will be at the conference and would really want you to experience the Northwest province. Some of our delegates are choosing to stay post the conference as well, who will be traveling to the Kruger National Park to see the Big Five. By the way, you can still see the Big Five just close to the Sun City Resort. But there is Mpumalanga as well, if you would like to do that. Some of that will like to see the African beaches as well. So they'll be traveling to either Durban or going to Cape Town. So there's a lot that's on offer over and above the education and the empowerment that will be happening at the conference.
Excellent. Thank you, Brenda. And in our chat, Osanakachi Akumakalu from TAFFDs states, we ask all members of the Transhumanist Party to please help us promote this event on their socials. And I did just feature the URL for the Gen4IR Summit on this stream. So please visit that site. It is gen4ir.org. And also please share the link to this virtual Enlightenment Salon on various social media groups and platforms, because this is a great way to hear from Brenda and Ugo and Edward what this event is going to be like, what it will feature. And as Brenda said, if you are able to travel to South Africa for the summit, that is what they would prefer. And thank you for the detailed overview of the kinds of events and amenities that you expect to offer there. Also, I'd like to acknowledge this generous super chat from Gloria Soria in Argentina. So she contributed 200 Argentine pesos. I think this is the first time we've had a super chat in Argentine pesos, which just shows we are growing in terms of our global reach. So thank you very much for that. And now I'm curious if our panelists have any questions for our guests from TAFFDs. Let us start with Art Ramon Garcia.
Yes, as you push this program into some of the other poorer countries in Africa, is there any way that you can sort of, do the STEAM part with the arts and maybe sort of coax that with a heavy dose of nationalism so that you don't end up with a lot of brain drain in some of these poor African countries?
I would like for Ugo to take that, but as I said, TAFFDs is multidisciplinary, and in that token, we do not leave any sector out, and we want to ensure that in our conferences, in everything that we do, we incorporate all of that. If you look at, some of the work that we are doing, we are really touching into the arts. Our recent project that, we started, it is still in its infancy.
It looks like Brenda's connection was interrupted again, and that's unfortunate. But Ugo, if you could elaborate on...
It looks at, creativity and all of that from the young ones. So as I said, Ugo can expand on that, but we do not want to leave any sector outside of what we're doing.
All right, thank you. Ugo, please go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so the arts is a very important aspect of what we are doing because we are very much focused on building the identity of the African, because a huge part of what was lost in colonialism, it's the identity of the African and the history. And it's a big project and very something that is I myself is very passionate about, because for you to actually build a history, for you to actually build a future, you must understand where you're coming from. You must understand who you are, and that's embedded in your identity, self-identity, and also cultural identity. And that is a huge part of what the arts is really all about. And we are very much into that because we understand the importance of history. So if you look at, as I rolled out some of the programs in our curriculum, we talk that there's the historic part of it that we talk about how to we teach that empowers children to learn how to think like historians. So excuse me. So it's a very important aspect of what we're doing. Learn how to think like historians so that you can learn how to think like a futurist. So it's a core aspect of what we're doing. And to think like historians is also embedded into the arts and all of that. So it's a core aspect of what we are doing, and we are very much interested in that, and we're really pushing that. South Africa, it's a place of art and beauty. If you visit the place, it's rich in historical context. You have the cradle of humankind, where you had the fossils of early proto-humans like Homo neanderthals and all of that. And so, and it's richly preserved, very well preserved. The government did a great job when it comes to that. So is a core aspect, and delegates, people who come for the conference, you will be seeing that. So we encourage you also to register. If you cannot come physically, maybe you can sponsor someone else and get the tickets for someone else to come as part of not only the support, but belief in what we are doing and where we're going. So it's a core aspect of it. So we're going to be showing that to people who will be at the conference. So, and we're also looking at how to bring in a digital version of all of this, to digitize the art, and through virtual reality and augmented reality, to bring this to create a more immersive experience for students and also for people who are across the world to feel what Africa has. These are some of the projects that we have in line. We want to go into detail some of these things. These are some of the things that we'll present at the conference. The historical part of Africa and the rich cultural heritage of Africa merged into virtual reality and augmented reality as a way of passing across the history and also the understanding of the rich African content. So the art is a key aspect of what we are doing, and we cannot leave that behind, because we've already suffered enough from what happened during the colonial past. We can only build from what we have from there, and we are very much prepared to build formidably into the future.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you very much, Ugo. And of course, in this venue and the virtual Enlightenment salons, we very much emphasize an interdisciplinary approach, and that means integrating art, science, philosophy, technology into a coherent understanding of the human condition, because these are all parts of the human condition. Edward, would you like to elaborate?
Yeah, just a few quick things. I have this beautiful sculpture that I got in 1990. I seem to get a bit of a glare here, in Tanzania. And I was there working on development issues, and the Tanzanian Youth Development Foundation sponsored a tour of the entrepreneurs in working in that country. And I've got this very beautiful sculpture here. Of course, in the United States, one of our national slogans is in Latin is "E pluribus unum," out of many, one. When you talk about Africa, it's like talking about Europe or talking about, for that matter, the United States. There are many different cultures with many beautiful things, but ideally you want to have some unity on certain basic principles. And so what I see TAFFDs is doing is not sacrificing, well, Nigeria has different culture in some ways than South Africa or Kenya. I've been to Kenya too, by the way. So I sort of think of it that way. I'll just say one other thing. When you talk about the unity of art and technology, I'll hold up the creation of someone who was absolutely obsessed with art and beauty and technology. And of course, it was Steve Jobs, who of course, was the co-founder of Apple, who created all the incredible technology. And he was very obsessed with, I don't want it to just be a piece of technology. I want it to be beautiful. I want it to have that integration of beauty and practicality and usefulness. So art, there's a call out to a unity of issues.
Excellent. Thank you very much to Edward. And now let us go on to Jason Geringer for his remarks.
Hey, I'm right with you. I think you're right in the right track as far as education goes. Africa could be possibly in a position to skip past some of the the problems that it takes when you innovate into a new kind of system. And the education system, I don't know what yours was like, but mine was not. It could be way better. It's like cookie cutter, and it's not. And all of the information is out there on the internet. I'm like no educator. But I created a whole social learning group where I used opinion polls to try to figure out the best lessons out of each of the lessons. And, I just copy and paste stuff. So, anybody can do it. And you're right. It's very important that the curriculum is eclectic and, centered around first, primarily, things like you said, first principles and knowing how to learn. And there's a whole lot of really useful skills that can be learned pretty easily nowadays online that I don't know if they're teaching in school or not, but little things like web design and photo editing, video editing, and how to use a digital audio workstation. And there's all kinds of things that are basically, it's all free now, almost, the knowledge anyway. We just need somebody to sort of collect it up. Now, whether or not that's going to get you a degree, it's not Harvard, but there's useful skills that people can learn just right off the internet for free, is what I mean. So I think you're right along the right track. And I think if you do put in all that infrastructure, you could almost, Africa could almost catch right up in a generation, if it had, I'm curious though, with your curriculum, how do you handle who is the teachers? Is it like a group learning situation, and you have a group go through the certain thing at certain time, or is there a self-learning with maybe mentors, or do you have like a teacher that runs a just regular like class, or how do you do that? I'm just curious.
Okay. Thank you, Jason, for that. So I think I want to just comment on your initial remarks. So yes, there's a lot of information that's freely available on the internet, and people can get that. The main problem with Africa is access to that. So we might have all of this information available, but the type of people that we are primarily targeting are people that are disadvantaged in the sense that they do not have access to that information. A simple thing like having access to internet itself, knowing how to use a computer, it's a challenge. For some of these kids, you have science and technology as part of the national curriculum. But when you look at what they have learned at school, it doesn't even cover, the basics of that. You get to varsity when other kids are starting to, when you are so good, you can actually qualify to study computer science. You get into your first class and other kids are, getting into programming or whatever. All you're trying to do is figure out where is press, alt, delete. It's the little things that are not there that are really hindering, that step forward that we really need to understand and try to help these ones with, so that they also can be on par with, their peers that are in the cities that have got access. If you think about some of these kids, before they even get to school, the small thing that they're struggling with is, did I have, is having a meal? They're hungry. They get this feeding, schemes at the different schools, but the type of food that they eat, it is winter. They do not even have clothing. The teachers themselves, they do not have access to this information that they're needing. The school curriculum starts in January. They only get textbooks 6 months later. What is it that they have covered in the past 6 months? So that is why we keep talking about TAFFDs, understanding what the issue is, and then customizing whatever it is that we are providing as a solution, or working with that community to find a solution to ensure that it is fit for purpose. So where I can do programming at a school that is based in Johannesburg and just go full steam, at a school that is based somewhere in rural Northwest, it will be something totally different. I need to make sure that, first of all, the school has got a roof and, the kids can sit there and there is a computer, if I'm going to talk about internet access and stuff like that. So we need to also just, understand that the situations will be different from one point to another. But I do agree with you. Organizations like TAFFDs want to do exactly that, to collate all of this and make it easier to access for these people. As far as how we want to roll out the training, what we want to do is provide blended training. In some cases, yes, it will be somebody that's standing there and then, teaching in a class, depending on what the needs are for that particular community or that particular group of students or entrepreneurs. Because remember, it's not only students, it's also people that are, retrenched. It's people that want to learn new skills, that want to be upskilled and all of that. So it might be that it might be trained, it might be, training that you get by just, as long as you've got Wi-Fi and you've got a computer, you can go in there. There are courses that are there that you can just consume without anybody being there, and you can just call up a mentor that will, or a tutor that can help you go through it. In some cases, it will be a group setting where, we deliver a particular training module, and then in some cases it will be practical on the job training where we develop specific skills. So it is blended, and it will be it will be based on what the needs are of that particular community that we are dealing with at the time.
Yes, thank you for that answer, Brenda. And it looks like Edward would like to comment more and reference a book that he's holding.
Well, yeah, I was going to reference a book, but also I'll do that first. But then I want one of my trustees, Michael Strong, is an education innovator, and one of his books is called The Habit of Thought. And he is one of the people who's perfected kind of this. I like to call it the application of the sort of thing that Ugo is doing, where he does it in the classroom. You can see videos of him working with young children and interacting with young children and teaching them how to think. There's an approach in this country called the Montessori method, which actually comes from Italy, from Maria Montessori, that is incredibly successful. If you look at the students coming out of this, of the Montessori schools, they tend to be far better than many other students. You also see in this country a real explosion of homeschooling, where you take some of these things like the great courses, like the Khan Academy and so forth, and blend them together. Brenda's right that, in different countries and in different regions, you're going to have to apply this. That's why I say when you talk about Africa, it's like talking about Europe, and there's a big difference between different areas and so forth. And just getting a roof over the student's head and getting internet access and so forth is crucial. But we often think of entrepreneurs as simply entrepreneurs of products, making, who's going to make the next one of these or the next one of these or whatever, or medical breakthroughs and so forth. Entrepreneurism in education is perhaps the most important entrepreneurism. That is, entrepreneurs who come up with the best ways of educating. And remember, I've got twin daughters, and they're very different. And the way they learn is very different. You're not training 87.4% of people. You're training individuals. You're teaching individuals. And that's why you have to allow for a system that in the long run focuses on the individual, how they learn best, and you basically have customized education. So that's one of the things I'm hoping to see, not only in Africa, of course, but here in the future, is as we develop better ways of educating through experimentation and the like.
Yeah, I'm curious about that too, because I've noticed that sometimes people, like I prefer self-learning, but like my brother, he was hands-on. He had to learn by doing stuff. He had to look at it, take it apart, blah, 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 blah. And so I noticed that there's different ways people learn, and I'm wondering how that, because it seems more difficult for the hands-on people to learn digitally, because, just it's inherently not hands-on, so I'm wondering how to, we can make stuff for them kind of people rather than, I don't know, it's going to be interesting. Go ahead, sorry.
Yes, so Jason was asking about the distinction between hands-on learning and digital learning and different learning styles that various individuals have greater comfort with. How would the TAFFDs future studies curricula address this?
Ugo will add and help me out here, because he does a lot of this training. But as far as future studies are concerned, as I mentioned earlier on, our learning or our delivery of the skills development and all of that will be blended. We need to look at, one, what is the needs? Two, who are we delivering this training to? And, where are we delivering this training? And based on all of those factors, then, that will determine how the training is done. So the learning can be as part of the curriculum, as I mentioned. In some cases, it might not be part of the curriculum. It might be as an extracurricular thing. In some cases, it might be, we have to go out there and, make it a short course that we will teach them in the classroom. In some cases, it will be a subject that will require them to be in the workplace, where it is practical learning for some people that are not able to maybe digitally learn. For some cases, even the language becomes a barrier. So you really need to explain some of these things in the language that they understand. So it is not going to be a one-size-fits-all. It will be based on the needs of that community, on the needs of the individual students that we are delivering this to. So I can't say that, this is what it is, and if whoever the consumer is needs to be taught or upskills, this is how we're doing it. We are gonna have to do a little bit of assessment and see how we can best deliver. Because if we are going to choose one way and do it the way we think works, it might not, deliver the results that we anticipate. It has to be fit for purpose. It has to be for the benefit of the person that is getting that learning or getting that training.
Yes, thank you, Brenda. And Ugo, please elaborate on the various educational methods. Also, as Edward mentioned, you have been doing a lot of work in teaching critical thinking to children, and I would be curious to hear from you what approaches work most effectively in that regard.
Okay, thank you so much for that. As a learning coach, I'm a learning coach. So I've worked with students 2019, 2020 as a learning coach, helping students in schools. My first book was Exercise in Clear Thinking, which you've shown. And my second book is actually focused on learning, infinite learning, where Edward talked about lifelong learning. So those are provide you with the practical cognitive skills that will enable you to learn how to learn. Now, as far as learning goes, and I'm privileged to be one of those that are heading this project of the Future Studies. So as far as learning goes, there are things that are very important that you need to understand when it comes to how to apply learning. And this is what we consider, putting these things, putting this curriculum together. Now, the human mind functions in a certain way. There is the semantic memory, and there is the episodic memory. The semantic memory deals with when you learn theories, like when you read books and then information about theories of how things work, and then you learn those stuff. It doesn't deal with practice. So when you go to school, the traditional school that we go, and then you sit down in class and your thoughts, what you get educated in that is what you build is semantic memory. Now, that has its place when it comes to human learning and what you're going to do in the world. Because for you to understand how to apply something, you have to understand the theory behind that, the laws guiding that. When you understand the theory behind that, it becomes easier for you to practice that. And the practice is when you talk about active learning. That caters, active learning caters to episodic memory, because episodic memory allows you to do the hands-on when you get into the experience and then you feel it. At the point that you are interacting with that subject or with the thing you're doing, The memories get encoded in your genes. It gets encoded in your DNA because you feel it. It becomes part of your memory. So it becomes part of your subconscious mind or subconscious system because you feel it on that part. But for the people who learn more, using the active part or learning actively, those are the people who are more dexterous, and it's easier for them to learn through that process. That has its place. Do you understand? It has its place in learning. And then we have also organized this curriculum in a way like Brenda talked about, so that it is blended. So we understand there is a role that semantic memory plays, and there is also a role that episodic memory plays. And so we created it in such a way there is parts that deal with passive learning. The passive learning part is the one that deals with the semantic. That's when you learn the theory that is behind things. And there's the part that deals with active learning. That is where you actually practice it so that it becomes part of the episodic memory. You learn it and it becomes part of you. So these things have their place. They have their importance, and we address them, appropriately. Putting the curriculum together in order to address this part. So it's important that we understand that even our technology is growing. We are at this point at the stage where we even have virtual reality that to some extent can also augment, when it comes to help in some way. It cannot remove the physical experience that comes in active practice. It cannot remove that, but it also augments in that. But as Brenda talked about, for most of these young children in Africa, especially from the rural areas, they're even talking about how to get access to this information in the first place, to get access to this kind of knowledge, and to get access to the tools that will be used in practicing this. There's also another aspect that comes in when it comes to mentorship. That has its place also, because you can give students the opportunity to practice, to get into the learning into the practice, and then take things apart and then put them together. But there's also a place where you will need a guide. You will need someone that is more experienced, so that something that is normally going to take you like a year or two to learn, it can take you 6 months to learn. And that's the part that mentorship comes in. So a mentor does not remove the process, it only shortens it, makes it so that you remove the unnecessary mistakes that are not important for you to go through. And then you go straight to the point and you're able to learn quicker and learn faster. So this also has its place. So why Blender said that it's a blended learning process, a blended learning experience, is that we understand the roles these different parts of human mind play, and then we integrate it into the curriculum, so that there is part that caters to the semantic, that allows you to learn the laws behind things. And then there's a part that caters to the practice, where you learn actively. And there's a part that caters to the mentorship, that allows you to learn much faster, quicker, and try to get things first. So this is more like a facilitated learning that allows you to learn how to approach things quicker, learn faster, and then move on. And so it's a very important program that we're designing. And it's not something you don't get it all at the start. That's why we're looking for collaborators, people to come in together to collaborate with us as we're going through this. But the structure is set in a way that allows for people to have that facilitated learning process that is all-encompassing, that embraces the different faculties of the human mind, so that you can embrace that. Because when you talk about human intelligence is not just catering to a particular thing. Human intelligence is not only about IQ. All the human capabilities come into place when you talk about human intelligence. And this is what we're trying to a large extent to address, to have that all-encompassing experience for the students to learn quicker, faster, and then grow from that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you very much, Ugo. And also, I would like to thank Pam Keefe for her generous super chat. She says, good to see the fostering of this kind of thinking in Africa. Next, I would like to go to a question from Zach Richardson, our Director of Publications. So he wonders if this active learning approach means customized learning for each person. He writes that one-size-fits-all education benefits from standardization and is already extremely expensive in the USA. So how do you propose to control costs? And Jason Geringer in the chat responds that a lot of that expense in the United States is bricks and mortar, and it doesn't have to be literally completely different for every single person, but some customization would be nice. And of course, I've said that the most effective types of communication and learning would be one-on-one. On the other hand, I am quite fond of self-study, so I have attained many professional designations just by studying textbooks, working out practice problems myself, and passing some of the most difficult exams in the world, which are the actuarial exams offered by the Society of Actuaries and the Casualty Actuarial Society. So for me, it's not a problem to have standardized materials and then study those standardized materials, but it is also an asset to have somebody with whom I can communicate in person to resolve issues that may arise. So do you think perhaps there is the opportunity for a cost-effective hybrid approach where you have standardized materials that people can go through on their own in the majority of circumstances, but if they need some clarification, some explanation, some guidance, or overcoming some sort of hurdle that they face, then they have the customized interaction, which would then be targeted toward helping them overcome their difficulties?
Yeah.
Let's see, I think Ugo may have wanted to comment on this.
The projects, so we call it a project, is more of is broken down into different sections. So we have the curriculum that is developed, that has been developed for being, they're going to be rolled out to schools, and there are also books that will help, that will guide in the process, putting out this curriculum, and then courses inside. Now, the book is going to be written in volumes, and it's written to address, to help each class or each level of students. So definitely there are materials that have been put out, that are being produced, that are going to help the students, for people who want to learn these things, for who want to read on their own, who want to study on their own and get this piece of information on their own. Definitely there are materials that we're putting together. Some of those are going to be presented at the summit. You're going to see them, and then after the summit, we're going to start rolling some of those things out. And we're also reaching out to experts in different areas of the industry, of transhumanism, on different areas, so that they can contribute. Because we are not just doing this alone. We are also reaching out to contributors to come in and bring in their own works and work together with us. So we'll see how we can fashion these things together. So it's more like building a system that works, a system that actually caters to human needs. So this is an entrepreneurial approach, like Edward talked about. It's an entrepreneurial adventure. So you don't know the end from the beginning. So most of the things that we say here, most of the things that we think, as we go into the field, and then we interact with the students, and then we get on the field and start interacting with the students, most of our assumptions will change, because reality is the best teacher. Like, you get in there, it shows you that this is what you need in order to solve this problem. And you've got to adapt to that. You've got to adjust your position in order to help to serve that. So that is the approach that we are using. That is an agile approach that actually adjusts to situations that as it gets along. So it's, definitely there are materials, and there will be more materials as we go along that will help for students to know.
Yeah.
Yes, excellent. Thank you, Ugo. And now let's go to Edward.
Yeah, I'll just say very quickly, I agree with this, and just a couple of quick points is that, the sort of assembly line mass production approach to education, starting in the 1800s, when you had very illiterate populations in Britain and France and places like that, did a good job of teaching the basics. It was one size fits all. It was the sage on the stage saying, this is what you do, and people consume it. And it had a very important place. And it still, I suspect, has a place in Africa, in certain parts of Africa. As I say, first get a roof over the heads of kids, get them some books and so forth. And so the economic thing might be exactly what we're talking about. But as we become more prosperous, and especially with the technology, then you can do more customizations. First of all, it's been done anyway. I was looking at my friend's book, and he's got an outline for 4 different models of how to do construct sort of 4 classroom models. And I know different Montessori schools have tried different mixes of what they do in the classroom itself. So you still have the same physical classroom, but you don't just have a sage on a stage like me lecturing you guys. You have, kids can go to the corner where, I really am interested in how these hands-on math things work, or this or that or the other. And then you have mentors and guides. And there are different models that are already being developed and are already working in different places. And with the technology we have, it becomes even more easier to customize. Again, because of the COVID, so many of our kids, including mine, have been on Zoom. A lot of the schools, including my own elementary school, has been basically using Khan Academy videos to teach the kids. It's already out there. So you're going to see a lot of entrepreneurism, and what works, in certain parts of South Africa might not be the best in certain parts of Kenya and certain parts of Nigeria and all. But it's exactly what Ugo and Brenda are talking about, is that this is getting off the ground. This is innovative. And I think in the end, it's going to be, I think people in the United States and Europe are going to look to Africa and say, wow, look what these folks have done. They're not just, these folks who are always behind us. They're the innovators.
Yeah,
Yes,
and just quickly, let me add something. As part of the approaches that we adopt, and it's something that I tried out when I was doing a program with students in Nigeria, and that was in 2019. So I did a pilot project with them that the students I had to divide the students into 10 groups. So 10 different groups. And then from those 10 different groups, the students we had to distribute questions on what is the most nagging problems that you have in your community that you want to solve. And it's very interesting when you do this kind of a thing. And this is what part of the things we are implementing in this project, because I had to test it out there to know how it works. Very interesting what you find out. There's a burst of creativity and insight that happens when you ask that kind of a question to students, very young students, teenagers, 12 to 10 years, 15 years, within that age bracket. So when I did that experiment, I noticed that these students, they started coming up with very interesting ideas of problems and how to solve these problems. And then they came together, each group would, different people will come up with different ideas, and then they will select amongst themselves on what idea they want to work on. So each of the 10 groups come up with an idea that they want to work on. And so they started working on this project. They will do research, they will consult, they will meet people, and then we started bringing in mentors, people who are more experienced in that field, maybe to give them some kind of a guidance. And I noticed something that happened. It fast-tracked their learning process of this student, because in Nigeria, we have our classes divided into this senior secondary, and there's junior secondary, and there's senior secondary in the secondary school. That's what you guys call high school in the United States. So for a student that is in high school, in the junior secondary, those JSS3, she was talking about solving extraordinary problems, like to create digital devices that is not gonna have that's not ever gonna lose signals. Things that are things that I myself couldn't have thought about. And when she started researching on this with members of her group, she started going deep into areas of physics or technology, things that are not even within the reach of her curriculum, what she was supposed to study at the level she was in class. So she went ahead, way ahead of what she was supposed to be studying. So that kind of creative combination of learning that allows students to look for solutions based on the problem they are witnessing in their own life and their own community. Some of them were coming up with problems that were witnessing in their family. And you notice that these are entrepreneurial ideas, things that if you had some kind of a venture capital, some kind of what will I say, a creative hub or a funding hub that would focus on the student and then see how these ideas can be funded, you will get a hub of ideas and solutions, entrepreneurial, that are going to solve a lot of problems in the society. Some of them were thinking of how, some of them were in rural areas where they had a lot of dust and on tarred roads. So they were thinking of how to create shoes that will not get dusty. Like some of the, and when you start thinking of solutions into that kind of a thing, then you're getting into the areas of nanotechnology, building things that become dust resistant and all of those things. So you notice the kind of the burst of ideas that can start coming up when you create this kind of growth. So that was an experiment I did back then, and it's really informed me like how well this can be really implemented and put in. So it's part of the things that we are approaches that we also they were also put in place as we roll this out.
Excellent. Thank you, Ugo. And I am quite impressed by your discussion of how a problem-solving oriented approach to education can stimulate this kind of entrepreneurial thinking and innovation and internally motivate people to go beyond, let's say, the standard expectations of where they would be based on, for instance, their grade or their age cohort, and instead they could leapfrog that because they find certain insights in other disciplines that would be able to be brought to bear on solving a particular set of problems that they face or that they care about. So this is quite fascinating and quite promising, because I think if people, especially young students, see a direct connection between learning and making their lives better, then that will motivate them all the more. And we have some interesting comments as well. Mike Lazine says, I'm with Gennady on self-learning. That is how I picked knowing how to mix and make digital music. And he never went to school for that either. So he's self-taught in that regard. And then we have a comment from John H., who says, I think there's still a place for the sage on the stage, as long as the sage is actually, sagacious, at least with respect to his or her own subject matter. So there are interesting lecturers. And indeed, this is an area where technology has really broadened our access to the sages on various stages throughout the world, because you can watch a lecture by a leading thinker in a particular subject very easily, often even for free online, of course, provided you live in a place with internet access. And for places without continuous or regular internet access, I think TAFFDs is doing a great service by providing these kinds of materials to the students there. And of course, hopefully, as the digital revolution in Africa unfolds, more and more locations are going to have the kind of internet access where we will have a lot of Africans coming online and taking advantage of the media that already exists for free on various platforms. So now let us go to Ben Ballweg, our Director of Longevity Outreach, for his remarks.
I want to dovetail from Gennady saying that Sage on a Stage, that these virtual enlightenment salons also are a Sage on a Stage opportunity, but also people can ask questions of the Sage on a Stage too. So little plug for this very product that we're streaming right now. I wanted to ask, I hope two separate questions, and just shoehorn them in quickly if possible. There was this Transhumanism and Africa conference yesterday that I was not able to attend. I wondered how your upcoming conference will be dovetailing with that. Second question, if you can squeeze it in. Wondered who one of the most intriguing Africa-based researchers studying longevity is right now that I should be getting on my radar.
Okay, thank you for those two questions. The last one I'll leave to Ugo and Edward maybe to respond to that. So I also was waiting for that that session. We've got Chukwu Abdul, who's based in Nigeria, who was also part of that session. I have not received feedback on that because I remember I was waiting in there for about 30 minutes and it wasn't starting. So I have not received feedback. I see there's a link that's coming up now. So I'm hopeful that it was able to continue. But Chukwu Abdul is our head of African markets at TAFFDs. And, he'll be one of the speakers at our conference that's coming up, the Global Summit that we're talking about now. And I am sure, and then we've got a few other transhumanists that will be presenting at the conference as well. So I'm sure most of the conversations that we had yesterday and some of the ongoing conversations that I had will be somehow featured at our conference, and we hope to hear a lot more from transhumanists and what it is that they have to offer to our different audiences.
Yes, thank you, Brenda. And I'll point out Chukwu Abdul was a guest at the Transhumanism and Africa conference, which I've linked here. Those who weren't able to attend can watch the replay. It was quite fascinating. He experienced an internet connection issue at first, but he then came back and was able to deliver his full remarks. So anyone who's interested, please make sure you watch that entire conference. There were some fascinating speakers, including Dr. Aubrey de Grey, Martine Rothblatt, Leo Igwe, also a great African transhumanist thinker, Stefan Lawrence Zorgner, and various others. So highly recommend watching the stream of that conference for anyone who wasn't there in person. And now I'm curious as to your thoughts on the other part of Ben's question, whether you are aware of any notable African researchers who are studying longevity, because this was an issue that Aubrey de Grey discussed as well, where I asked a question about the bottleneck of talent in longevity research right now being the primary challenge at present for further progress in the field now that funding has greatly expanded. And he and I both think that talent in Africa can be one key component to the solution to this bottleneck. So with education, with bringing more Africans online, with cultivating an interest in longevity and combating disease and combating aging among African students, we could raise the next cohort of great longevity researchers. So who do you think is doing some pivotal work in this area in Africa?
Okay, thank you so much for that question. So part of this is what TAFFDs is really all about, and what we are really driving and pushing forward, because we want to get us more minds into these conversations and into these important topics as possible from this part of the world. Because when we're talking about questions of longevity, transhumanism, some of those things are issues that are things that are not really on the front burner when you come to Africa, especially when in schools or some of them. So that is why we are bringing in these future studies. That is why we're bringing in these questions relating to this. I, for one, am someone that is I've been interested in transhumanism and also longevity studies for a long period of time. I've had the opportunity to interview Aubrey de Grey I've had the opportunity to also be in conversation and interview Max Moore, that's doing works in cryogenetics and all of that. And those are quite fascinating works that they're doing. And this is what TAFFDs is really interested in. So at the moment, we don't have a lot of people that I know of in Africa that are doing this research. I might be wrong because I've not had time to dig in deep, but we are trying to engender this kind of thinking in Africa. And that is why at the conference, we have Aubrey the girl will be speaking. We have Natasha Vidamore will be speaking. A lot of transhumanists, a lot of transhumanist thinkers, life extinction folks who are doing an incredible job in that area will also be in attendance because we want to sow the seed, because we want to engender this kind of thinking and this kind of approach when it comes to solving one of the greatest problems that I think for humanity on a serious note. So, so that would be that's my answer for that. For now, I don't know of any person on my own. I might be wrong. Maybe I have to dig a little bit more on that. If I have, then I'll share those with you. But we are pushing forward to engender this kind of thinking and see how pull it through.
Yes, thank you very much, Ugo. And hopefully, indeed, the Gen4IR Summit will be able to spark more interest in longevity research among Africans, and furthermore, help educate the up-and-coming talent that will contribute to such research there going forward. And we only have about 3 minutes left in our broadcast today. I wanted to briefly highlight an important contribution from two of our friends from Africa, also closely associated with TAFFDs, of course, Osinakachi Akuma Kalu and Ugo Chukwu Alo, who wrote this excellent post recently entitled, "Why Do We Spend So Much Destroying Rather Than Improving Humanity?" So please follow the link on Facebook and read it, because this is extremely relevant to the geopolitical crisis that exists now in Eastern Europe and threatens to engulf the world. And I want to read an excerpt from this statement and encourage you to read it in its entirety. Ugo Chukwu Alo and Osinakachi Akuma Kalu write, "In this time of unprecedented human progress, we seem to have decided to take many steps backwards. We have upturned our world in need of healing, growth, and development for destruction just because of our ego wars. Reeling from the devastating impact of COVID-19, there's no better time to seek peace than now. Every voice deserves to be heard, laws to be respected, and agreements reviewed in line with improving humanity. Of what benefit is the notion of first world countries and first world persons when, in all essence, everyone is created equal and designed to add value to our common community?" And they conclude with the following remarks. It's time to give peace the chance it deserves. As Michael Jackson said in his immortal song, "Heal the world, make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race. There are people dying. If you care enough for the living, make a better place for you and me. Across the world, let's give peace a chance." And I say this sentiment strongly resonates with me, because the world faces a crisis that has been unprecedented in my lifetime and may be terminal for humanity unless we step back from the abyss and unless we pursue the path of peace and improving humanity rather than destruction. And this is where our friends from TAFFDs and our friends in Africa can provide extremely valuable perspective, because I think people in the Western world and Europe and the United States, they're often at loggerheads. They have what seem to be fixed, immovable positions that they will not budge from because of foolhardy pride. But if we have this outside perspective, this wisdom from people who have earnestly tried to improve their lives and to spread the benefits of science and technology and education throughout their continent, and in many respects are succeeding or are on the verge of success. If we can get their insights into this crisis situation, I think this will help. I think this will diffuse the tensions. And I hope in next week's broadcast, we will shed more light on the crisis in Eastern Europe and some opportunities for resolving it. In the meantime, I'd like to thank our guests from TAFFDs, Brenda Ramokopelwa, Ugo Chukwu, Edward Hudgens, and the entirety of our distinguished panel. And also, I will leave the last word to Jose Cordero in the last 20 seconds of this broadcast. What can you tell our audience?
Well, I think that this crisis should be an opportunity. In fact, the Chinese character for crisis has two parts. The first one is danger, but the second one is opportunity. And I think this war will be such a major fiasco that governments will reconsider war altogether. And the same with the pandemic. I think this will be the last global pandemic. We are learning so much and improving so much that I truly hope this will be the last global pandemic in human history. So that's my positive message at the end. And I hope to see you next week and my friends also in TAFFDs in Africa in a few days. And as I like to say also, live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper. Thank you, everyone. And until next time.